right, thanks a lot. I'm going to try to rip through pretty quickly some tools that we've built internally to solve design problems, particularly problems in collaborating between design and development teams. The TLDR, Kalamuna, is an agency based in Oakland, California. We work with mission-driven organizations. We give a damn about the work that we do and the clients that we take on. These are some of them. A lot of higher ed, as mentioned, a little bit of government work. We did a big push for Fair Trade USA using some of the technologies I'll be demoing today. This is the product team for what I'll be demoing. It's called KSTAT. Oh, that's better. We Kala prefix everything. It makes it really easy to find stuff. Rob Loach, who can't be here today, he's a lot of the masterminding behind the operations. We have some design peppered in there, a lot of back-end work. But yeah, what am I talking about? So KSTAT is a prototyping framework. Raise your hand if you've heard of Pattern Lab? Yes? Raise your hand if you haven't heard of Pattern Lab? Okay, cool. Just testing audience participation. Basically there are different ways that you can build out style guides and prototypes. We found at the time that we started this, there was some inefficiencies and things didn't work exactly the way that we wanted. So we built our own wheel. We built a prototyping framework, also a static site generator. We wanted to satisfy a particular use case. We wanted to be able to be a little bit more agnostic about how we were approaching the prototyping process. We didn't want to say, oh, we're going to use this technology or that technology. Maybe we want to use nothing, and we want to produce production-ready code. And that's not something that most prototyping tools out there did. You had to prototype, and then you have to rebuild it. But like any good design process, you want to iterate, and you want to iterate. You don't want to start over. You want to keep going. So that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to keep going. We wanted a style guide, and ultimately we wanted to build a bridge, in our case, to Drupal, which is the content management system that we have more expertise in. Who's heard of Drupal? Show of hands. Okay, cool, excellent. We also want to practice lean UX. As I said, we want to keep going forward. Who did we build this for? For ourselves, obviously, but for anyone who wants to be developing style guides. We also had a dream of building more interagency collaboration. We have capacity in design in certain focus at certain times, in the back end at certain times. And for projects, we wanted to be able to collaborate, not just throw things over the wall, work with a bunch of people, send you PSDs, and you're like, oh my God, what are we going to do now? We wanted to keep that collaboration going. We wanted to build tools to facilitate that. We wanted to decouple our front end from the framework that we were using to be more agnostic again. And we wanted to really just work a lot more quickly. What is this? This is a demo. It's a command line tool, yay, all right. So we put together a little boilerplate, and everything is node-based. There are no dependencies other than Node. I'm going to start this up, and boom. Okay, it's got a built-in web server. You don't need any other things or MAMPs or whatever. You can do whatever you want. Here is a very bare bones example, a little hello world page. And in the code editor, you'll see we have some YAML front matter. This is an example of the index file, which is just Markdown. We've got a description, we've got a title, we've got a headline here, Canada. And what else does it do? It makes you warm. Great. So I'm going to hit save, and boom, I didn't have to reload the browser. Everything just reloads. We have a whole bunch of tools built in. Browser sync and all that stuff, so you can have all your different devices, and as you're saving the things, they all update. It's pretty magical. But that's not all that it does. This is a little bit vanilla. Here's a website that we built and prototyped out. Crispin, our director of user experience, led this process, and we're happy to talk more about how that went. I'll just refresh it because the video is all snazzy. So this is kind of what it looks like. This is the actual live website. I'll show you guys the prototype in a second. Here's another area of the website. Support, and I'm going to go here. And I'll show you a little bit more. So there's all these little bits, And let's check out the back end for a second, but before I do, I'll show you guys the actual style guide itself, which lives in the site. Why am I looking up there? Because everyone else is. Here's the style guide, and there's a little menu. Let's check things out. We document all the components. They're all in here. Here's a button. You can check out the code. This isn't a terribly unfamiliar sort of thing if you've seen style guides before. It's the kind of thing you're looking for. You want code documentation. This uses TWG. The framework is pretty agnostic though, so that's another thing. We're not really opinionated. Well, I mean, we're very opinionated, but we're not opinionated in the tools that we use. We want to be able to change those opinions later as new things come along, as they do, and as they do, we adapt. So yeah, we've got all these little components here. Here's another example of one. We got some charts, some more complex things, some graphs. All this stuff is responsive and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, let's check it out in the CMS. So here I've got this page. It's pretty nice, but I'm missing a chart here, so I'm gonna create another table. So here's the back end. We've got these different components. I'm gonna stick it in a tab here. Let's see. Science. We always need science, right? Yeah. All right, so I'm going to create a table, some new little components. Now, part of the magic here is, this is just some cool little CMS stuff that Drupal can do. So I'm going to upload a little CSV and populate my table. So boom, I've got some data, and I'm going to save this, and we can check out science in action. Science tab has appeared, and we have a table, pretty magical. The nice thing here is that all of this is connected, so when we prototype this out, as I was showing you in the style guide, this code is exactly the same code on the template side of things that is being pulled into the CMS. So we built this all out ahead of time. We have a little TWG file. We have some sample data that gets passed in. That sample data gets replaced by the CMS data later on, and everything's all just molecularized. You have the little SAS files, you've got all the TWG stuff. So we can build all this ahead of time, take all these components, put them together in layouts, test them out across browsers, make sure that everything is good, adapt, and then afterwards, move over to the CMS, and most of our front-end code has already been built. And that's kind of the essence of it. There's some other nice stuff. If I have another minute, I will rip through some bullet points. As I said, it's easy to install. It's got a CI tool chain built into it, so you can easily not only do this stuff locally, but push it up to Circle or Travis, and all your stuff's going to get built for you. You're not committing all your SAS files. It should be SAS files, not all your CSS files. Things are nice and slim. As I said, we're pretty agnostic in regards to the styling framework. We've adopted Bootstrap for a lot of stuff, but that can easily be flipped out. And we've got some integration with Drupal as well that provides some configurations. And we've got some documentation, which is always super fantastic. We also built some integrations with other content prototyping tools like Prismic, Gather Content, and Drupal itself, which can push out JSON. Because you're not only, when you're designing and prototyping, there's images, there's text, like content. You want to prototype your content. You want to see how things are going to go. They're not just boxes you fill in and you deliver something, the client puts the stuff in, nothing fits. You're like, what did we do? So we wanted to be able to use those services, and now we have a little bit more dynamism. We don't have to edit markdown files. We can use like some of those tools and do some magic there. And some neat little utilities and things like that. But we're getting into the weeds a little bit. Happy to chat a little more in detail. I know this audience is mixed, but aspirationally, we've seen this tool in practice used other places. I know you guys have been playing around with it a little bit. It's not proprietary, it's all open source. We try to work in an open environment. We want to give back, whatever we do, because as we saw with the previous presenter, you never know where these things are going to go, what applications they'll have. We're surprised to see who's adopted our tool sometimes. It's interesting, it changed their minds, it's pretty empowering. And ultimately, it's a great service that we can provide to people who we didn't even know needed things that we were making, and that's always a surprise. So, yeah, thanks a lot for your time, and keep up the good work.
I'll take a few questions.
There are questions. I have answers. About the meaning of life or other things. Yep.
So this giant tool is open source. How did you manage to swing that instead of just charging people for it?
Well, I mean, it's a tool, right? Like you wield the hammer, and that's what they pay you for, right? Anyone can go buy drywall at Home Depot. It's not a closed source environment, right? You don't need to have your contractor license to go there, but if you want your wall to look good, you're going to work with the professionals. And how do people know that you're professional? Because they look at your tools and they're like, whoa, those are some fancy tools, maybe we should work with these guys. I will take philosophical questions.
Similarly, how have you seen this tool bend and flex based on the needs of your clients and their collaboration with it? Do you find that internal teams are able to adopt this? Things like that. Have you seen it proliferate through your engagements?
Yeah. Well, early on, we thought we could convince the client to edit Markdown files, and that was a mistake. But so we adapted there. We started investigating other integrations. We found that we had another really interesting approach. I showed earlier in the CMS. When you're creating these components on the back-end side of things, there's a lot of code that goes into sometimes, depending on the systems you're using. In Drupal, paragraphs is really big. You build a lot of these landing pages. That's what these little things you're adding on, or I don't know why they call them paragraphs. They're not really paragraphs. They're things, right? Units. Just call them units. So we build all those little things, but then what if you change your mind, right? All of these things are the same. It's a text field with a headline, and then there's an image, and then there's a piece of copy that you put in there. But then you change your mind. You want to go, oh, I don't want the image left. I want to make a grid of a thing. So we built this thing called Cala something, and it let us switch the stuff on the fly, right? And then we found that it just ended up becoming a little bit. There were some other problems that arose with that, and you just kind of keep adapting. So yeah, I think it's important. When you own your own tools, you can have that flexibility to try stuff and then change it around. You don't have the excuse of just saying to the client, well, it just doesn't work that way, because when you've made it, you can kind of make it work whichever way is needed. And that's a bit of the struggle, right? Is fighting in those moments to being everything to everyone, and then keeping the product vision focused enough to be adaptable for the next thing. And as technologies have changed, as new stuff has come out, we got rid of Ruby, which was what we used to compile all the Sass pretty early on, and now we use Node-lib. So we're always switching out the technologies to use what's better and more performant as things move along. Yeah. I'm done.
All right.
That shit is deep.